The night air bit into David Goggins' skin like a razor. He stood on the trail, breath hitching. Every muscle throbbed with sharp fire. Looking down, his shoes were stained dark with blood. 80 miles had already been covered. A medic's flashlight cut through the gloom. He grabbed Goggins' arm, his voice tight with alarm. "Your legs are failing," he warned. "If you take another step, you risk permanent damage." Goggins sank to the dirt, the silence pressing in. The temptation to quit was a suffocating blanket. He closed his eyes, letting the exhaustion win for a heartbeat. Then, a cold command. "Who are you?" He remembered the vow to never let circumstances define him. He pushed his palms into the frozen earth. His muscles screamed, but he forced his frame upright. "Pain is temporary," he whispered. "Regret is forever." He took one step, then another. He used the pain as fuel. As the horizon turned a bruised purple, the finish line appeared. He dragged his body forward. Crossing the line, he collapsed. He stared at the rising sun. The finish line was a blur of gray pavement and blood. David Goggins collapsed, lungs burning like fire. Most would stop here, but Goggins saw a lie. He realized his mind had quit long before his body failed. At 4 a.m., his muscles screamed in protest. He didn't wait for motivation. Motivation is a fickle guest, but discipline is the host that stays. He stepped into the freezing rain, every stride a deliberate strike against his own weakness. When the inner voice whispered, "You are tired, stop," he didn't argue. He just ran faster. He treated that voice like an opponent in a ring. He learned the 40% rule. When your brain screams that you are finished, you have only tapped into 40% of your true capacity. He pushed past that threshold every single day. He stopped chasing comfort and started hunting purpose. He didn't want to be perfect. He wanted to be undeniable. He looked in the mirror at a man who had conquered his own excuses. Greatness is the brutal, consistent act of doing exactly what you do not want to do. Hard work does not just change your results, it changes you. 4 a.m. The alarm rings like a battle cry. David Goggins rolls out of bed. His muscles ache from yesterday's 20-mile run, but there is no hesitation. He laces his shoes tight and steps into the freezing rain. Discipline is eternal. Every step on the wet pavement is a brick in the wall of his character. By 6 a.m., while the world sleeps, he is drenched in sweat. His mind screams for him to stop, to find warmth, to rest. He ignores the voice. He treats his mind like a muscle that must grow through discomfort. Readiness follows. Later, he faces the heavy barbell. His lungs burn and his grip slips. Most would walk away, citing fatigue. Goggins adds more weight. He is chasing the version of himself that exists just beyond his current limits. By nightfall, his resolve is absolute. He is in command. He is not searching for limits. He is building past them. The alarm clock rings at 3 a.m. Before the first light touches the horizon, David Goggins rolls out of bed. He does not hesitate. He pulls on his running shoes, steps into the freezing darkness. This is not a one-time event. It is his baseline. He hits the pavement, his breath forming clouds in the cold air. Every mile is a choice. Back home, he moves to the pull-up bar. His muscles burn, and his mind whispers, "Stop." He ignores the voice. He treats that internal hesitation as an opponent to be defeated. He performs another set, then another. He tracks his performance in a notebook, analyzing his fatigue. He is not training for a race. He is building an unbreakable mindset. When a task feels overwhelming, he does not look for an excuse. He breaks it into layers. By evening, he has expanded his limits. Greatness is found in the repetitive actions. He sets his alarm for tomorrow, turning motivation into the reality of his daily existence. Discipline is the foundation. He prepares to do it all over again. The alarm screams at 3 a.m. Before the first hint of light touches the horizon, David Goggins is already moving. No hesitation, no second guessing. He laces his running shoes tight and steps into the freezing, empty darkness. This is not a one-time event. It is his standard. The pavement is a frozen void. His lungs burn and his legs ache, but he maintains a rhythmic pace. He is not running for a trophy. He is running to dismantle the voice in his head that whispers, "Stop. You have done enough." He is hunting his own weakness. Back home, he moves to the pull-up bar, set after set, until his palms blister and bleed. He does not bandage them. He watches the blood drip, notes the limit, and pushes for 10 more. Every movement is calculated. He treats his mind like a laboratory, recording his resistance to pain in a journal. When temptation tells him to skip a mile, he visualizes the struggle as a physical opponent. He stares it down. He knows comfort is a trap. By choosing the hardest path, he builds layers of mental armor. When the sun rises, he is hours into the work. He seeks no validation, only the quiet satisfaction of zero compromise. Greatness is not a sudden spark. It is the result of showing up when you want to quit. 4 a.m. The alarm rings and Mark sits up instantly. There is no snooze button and no internal debate. In the silence, he laces his shoes. Outside, freezing rain hits the pavement. He does not run to prove a point. He runs because he is a runner. This is no longer about discipline. It is his identity. By 6 a.m., he is at his desk. The phone is ignored. Social media is a ghost. He tackles a single, complex project with surgical precision. When doubt enters his mind, he catches the thought, labels it, and lets it pass. By noon, his muscles ache, but he does not collapse. He understands that growth requires recovery. He is expanding his capacity. Every hour is a resource, and he refuses to waste a single minute. As the sun sets, he finishes his final task. There is no applause. Only a quiet, steady confidence remains. He knows he will do it all again. Mastery is the life he chooses. The gym is a ghost town at 3 in the morning. David Goggins stands alone before the squat rack, his breath steady and cold. He loads the final plate in total silence. He drops into the squat, the cold iron biting deep into his shoulders. Every fiber of his legs screams for him to stop. He pushes through the searing burn because he refuses to break the trust. He racks the weight and stares into the mirror, searching for weakness. He finds it a small thought suggesting he has done enough. He immediately rejects the lie. He grabs his shoes and hits the dark, rainy streets. His lungs sting with the freezing air. Years ago, this pain felt like a prison. Now, he views it as a compass. He does not run to escape. He runs to refine his very identity. Returning home as the sun rises, he writes down his failures without sugarcoating. There is no finish line, only the next level. He has already won the war within. He is becoming the man he respects. The alarm screams at 4 a.m. David sits on the edge of his bed, joints aching from decades of abuse. He does not hesitate, lacing his boots. He steps into the freezing rain. Someone is watching. A young man stands shivering at the track's edge, drowning in his own failures. David stops, breath visible in the biting air. He simply points and says, "Start now." He turns and runs another mile, forcing the man to follow or quit. The warrior has become the teacher. He watches the man struggle with the heavy barbell. David adjusts the man's grip and stands back. He does not lift the weight for him. He watches the strain, the red face, the shaking limbs, until the bar finally locks out. Comfort is a trap. The man looks for praise, but David only points to the next set. True strength is who you can lift up. He walks into the alarm rings at 4 a.m. Elias sits up, his feet touching the cold floor. He does not hesitate or negotiate with fatigue. He simply puts on his shoes. and steps into the dark, silent street. In the park, his breath is steady. A stranger watches his stride, but Elias seeks no approval. He is focused only on the path. Back home, he opens his notebook. He writes 3 goals. At the office, a crisis erupts. Deadlines are collapsing and panic fills the room. While others pace, Elias stands by the whiteboard. He strips away the noise. He does not blame or raise his voice. He simply directs energy. By evening, the team succeeds, but Elias is already preparing for tomorrow. Walking home, the city lights reflect in the puddles. He feels the weight. The struggle was never about the finish line. It was about the person he built. He sets his alarm for 4 a.m. He is not finished. The gym lights flicker and die, leaving David in total darkness. He sits on a cold rubber mat, his chest heaving, sweat dripping onto the floor, just the rhythmic sound of his own heavy breathing. Years of endurance have stripped away the noise. He remembers nights of broken bones. Standing up, his knees popping, he looks in the mirror. He does not seek ego. Every scar marks a moment he almost quit, but did not. He realizes the battle was never against the world. It was against his own mind. He laces his shoes tight and steps into the cool night air. A mile in, his legs burn. His mind whispers, "Stop, rest, sleep." He ignores the voice. He focuses on the rhythm of his feet hitting the pavement. He knows that consistency is the only way to build a life he respects. Hard work is not a burden. It is the ultimate form of freedom. He turns around to run back. The journey never ends. He takes one more step, then another. Greatness is not a destination. The alarm rings at 4 a.m. Mark sits up instantly, his feet hitting the cold floor without hesitation. No snooze button, no bargaining. What once felt like a war against comfort is now simply how he breathes. He steps into the dark, damp air. His breath is rhythmic. He does not run to beat a record, but to master his form. A neighbor nods in recognition of his daily consistency. Mark's mind remains perfectly clear. At his desk, the real work begins. There is no frantic energy, only methodical execution. He ignores the ringing phone to finish his task, seeking no praise or external validation. He understands that true strength is invisible, built in the silence of discipline. By noon, he has finished what others take a week to complete. Fatigue and deadlines exist, but they do not dictate his actions. He remains the architect of his own time, focused entirely on the process rather than the final result. As the sun sets, he knows there is no finish line to cross. He does not fear the repetition. He embraces it. Tomorrow, the loop begins again. He closes his eyes, ready to build himself. The alarm rings at 4 in the morning. Elias sits up in the dark, his muscles aching from yesterday's training. His mind whispers for one more hour of sleep, but he does not argue. He simply swings his legs over the edge and stands. Lacing his shoes, he leaves his phone behind. No social media, no chasing applause. He runs through empty streets with a steady, rhythmic breath. He is no longer fighting the road. He is moving with it. At his desk, a complex project waits. He writes, deletes, and writes again, pulling his focus back every time it drifts. When a report shows a failed result, he does not panic. Fear flickers, but he treats it as mere information. He analyzes the data, notes the error, and adjusts. He knows growth is not a straight line, but roots deepening beneath the surface. By noon, his eyes are sharper, calmer, and entirely changed. Elias leads without speaking, his steady gait inspiring a neighbor to action. As the sun sets, he prepares to begin again. He understands that this cycle is his life. He is defined by 4 a.m. The world is asleep, but the garage is alive with the sound of heavy breathing. The air is biting, and David Goggins' legs still scream from yesterday's 20-mile run. He stares at the pull-up bar. There are no cameras here, no cheering crowds, just the cold steel. He reaches up, grips the bar, and pulls. 1, 2, 3. His muscles burn, begging him to drop, but he refuses to listen. He is not looking for a way out. He steps down, wipes the sweat from his brow, and checks his watch. This is the invisible war. Most people quit when the applause dies. But Goggins thrives in this emptiness. He realized long ago that the finish line is a lie. It is a trick played by the mind. He does not seek external validation. He marks a simple check in a notebook. Consistency is his only master. When his mind whispers, "I am tired," he simply adds another set. He looks in the mirror and nods. No ego, just clarity. He steps out into the dark and begins to run again. The alarm rings at 4 a.m. Elias sits up instantly. No hesitation. He walks to the kitchen, pours a glass of water, and drinks it in silence. He does not check his phone. He simply begins. At the gym, the weights are heavy, but he moves them with rhythmic precision. Each lift is identical to the last. He finishes his set, wipes the bench. This is not a struggle for him. It is his very nature. At the office, a colleague complains about the workload. Elias listens, nods once. He does not argue or offer excuses. He simply opens his laptop. His focus is a locked door. Outside, the world chases trends and validation, but Elias ignores the noise. He knows that metals rust and opinions shift like sand. He focuses only on the next action. One line of code, one document, one decision. He repeats this until the sun sets. He does not need a trophy to prove his worth. His worth is the consistency of his output. He lies down, prepares to wake up at 4 a.m. again. Life does not get easier. He has simply become strong. The stadium lights have dimmed, and the crowd has gone home. David Goggins sits alone in a silent room, staring at his reflection. He whispers the haunting question, "What now?" The era of seeking validation is over. He checks his watch. He tosses his phone across the room, cutting off the digital noise. He picks up a heavy kettlebell. His muscles scream. Comfort is a thief, whispering that he has done enough. He grips the iron tighter, his knuckles turning white. He performs another repetition, then another. He wakes at 4 a.m., works, and repeats. No drama. Training in the dark until his identity hardens like steel. True freedom is the ability to do what is right when it is hardest. He is the master of his own internal. The gym lights hummed, casting long, sharp shadows across the floor. David Goggins sat in the silence, his chest rising and falling. He had run the miles and lifted the iron, yet his hands felt heavy. He whispered to the empty air, "What if I've hit the ceiling?" A soft voice inside suggested, "You have done enough. You have earned your rest." He gripped the windowsill, his knuckles turning white as he realized comfort was the true enemy. He did not wait for motivation. He did not look for a reason. He simply dropped to the floor and began a single push-up, then another. He was not rebuilding for glory, but to keep from fading away. As he moved, the fog lifted. Growth is not a straight line. He wiped the sweat from his brow, choosing to continue. True strength is found in the quiet. He stood before the mirror. The silence was heavy. He no longer saw a struggler, but a man rebuilt. Today, that fire was gone. Clarity took its place. He did not wait for motivation. His body moved because discipline demanded it. Emotion no longer held the reins. The battle was now strategic. He pushed when necessary and rested when wise. His first rise built strength, but this second rise built wisdom. Consistency beat intensity. Results did not sway him. He felt fear but moved forward. Peak mastery was mastering himself. You do not become unbreakable by avoiding hard times. You become unbreakable by rebuilding yourself after them. The strongest version of you is the alarm screams at 4 in the morning. Mark sits up, his muscles screaming from yesterday's grind. He stares at the wall. His purpose is beginning to shift. In the gym, a newcomer struggles, his face twisted in frustration. Mark doesn't walk past. He stops, adjusts the man's grip. Mark realizes his strength is a bridge. Later, at his desk, He deletes the word goal and types legacy. He knows that if he quits, others lose their reference point. He trains harder now, not for a medal, but for consistency. Walking through crowded streets, he no longer judges tired faces. He reaches out to a colleague, offering guidance. Success is the number of people he pulls up. As the sun sets, he returns to the iron. He is tired, but steady. He lifts, he breathes, and he leads. The alarm rings at 4 a.m. Elias sits up, his feet meeting the cold floor. Years ago, this felt like a burden. Now, it is simply the start. He drinks his water and opens his notebook. These 3 tasks are the architecture of his purpose. When doubt flickers, he pauses. He labels the thought as irrelevant and refocuses. His energy is not a frantic storm, it is a steady, controlled flame. At the office, a deadline collapses. Panic rises like a tide. Colleagues pace and shout, but Elias remains still. His breathing is rhythmic. He identifies the bottleneck and reassigns the tasks. He speaks in a low, clear tone. He moves with the precision of a clock, cutting through the noise with absolute clarity. Walking home, he nods to a defeated stranger. His presence is the message. He reaches his door, exhausted but at peace. He does not chase a finish line, for the path itself is the destination. Tomorrow will come, and he is ready. The alarm rings at 5. Mark sits up, his feet meeting the cold floor. There is no hesitation, no negotiation. He laces his shoes and steps into the dark street. Years ago, this was a battle against laziness. Today, it is simply breathing. He passes a struggling runner in the park, his own heart rate calm. The days of chasing titles and promotions are over. He no longer seeks a final version of himself. Mark finally understands a profound truth. The finish line is a myth. Back home, he writes 3 tasks in his notebook. No frantic planning, just the work. An angry email flashes on his screen, but his pulse remains flat. He sends a brief reply and closes the laptop. He eats in silence, watching dust motes dance in the shifting sunlight. He is not living in next year or mourning the past. He is simply here, fully present in the now. On his porch, his steady presence acts as a mirror for a tired neighbor. Mark watches the stars appear, knowing tomorrow will be the same. He is the 5 a.m. A year ago, this sound triggered a wave of dread and a heavy weight on his chest. Today, Mark simply stands up. He drinks his water, laces his shoes, and steps into the cold morning air. There is no internal debate anymore. He walks the path he has. When he reaches the steep hill that once forced a complaint, he does not slow down. He no longer labels the climb as pain. It is simply the terrain. Back at his desk, the old distractions are gone. He opens the file and begins. His focus is a closed loop. When a difficult email arrives, he identifies the problem and writes a concise reply. He seeks no validation. By noon, the office is loud with chatter and stress, but Mark remains in his pocket of silence. He feels the same pressure as his agitated colleagues, but it no longer dictates his heart rate. He simply executes. On the commute home, he is entirely present. His strength is not found in a grand victory, but in the fact that he is still here, doing the work. The struggle remains. But Mark has become the master. The arena lights dimmed, leaving Elias alone in the center of the ring. His knuckles were bruised, but his breath remained steady. Today, he simply exhaled, looking at his reflection. He saw a man who had finally stopped running, walking out into the cool night air. The city hummed with life, but he felt no urge to conquer it. His mind was a calm lake, no longer churned by storms. He passed a construction site where workers struggled with a heavy beam. Without a word, he gripped the steel, helping them guide it into place. He did not ask for credit or wait for praise. Later, on a park bench, he watched a young runner sprint past with desperate eyes. Elias recognized that fire. It had burned him once, but now it served only to light his way. He stood up, his movements fluid and unhurried. He had no destination. The journey continued in the simple act of breathing. He walked into the shadows, not as a conqueror, but as the path itself. The hallway mirror is thick with dust. Years ago, Mark stood here for hours, measuring his progress and labeling himself a survivor. Today, he walks past it. He pours a glass of water, his movements silent and precise. He steps into the morning air. A neighbor shouts an insult about his business failure, but Mark does not stop. He feels no sting of anger, no need to defend his image. He acknowledges the sound like the wind and simply continues. At the park, he watches children play without comparison. Then, the sky breaks. As rain pours down, he does not scramble for cover. He walks through the downpour. He realizes now that the years of struggle were not obstacles. They were the chisels removing the marble to reveal the statue beneath. He was only removing the layers that made him weak. He reaches a small, quiet garden and sits. He closes his eyes and breathes. The fear of losing status has vanished. The journey is not over, but the race has ended. At last, he is fine. The mountain path ends at a sheer cliff. Elias stands at the edge, refusing to look back. Years ago, he climbed this peak to escape his failures, carrying a heavy pack of regrets. Today, he carries nothing but the silence. He drops his walking stick. It clatters against stone and vanishes into the mist. His pulse is steady now. His breath matches the rhythm of the wind. His mind is a clear mirror, reflecting the world without distortion. He remembers the days of internal wars, the constant struggle between ambition and exhaustion. He reaches for a branch with a movement that is precise and effortless. There is no hesitation. There is no doubt. The mountain was never the obstacle. His own resistance was the weight he carried all along. He is finally light. He passes a lost traveler, offering only his grounded presence. He was only meant to shed everything that was not himself. Elias stands in a quiet, sun-drenched room. He sets his heavy leather journal on the mahogany desk and closes his fountain pen. The ink is still wet on the final page. Outside, the city traffic hums, but the old urge to rush has faded. He turns to the mirror, looking past the signs of aging into steady eyes. He remembers the shivering nights in the rain after his first failure, the years of waking at dawn, and the heavy silence of a house that felt empty for a decade. He is not a titan, just a man who refused to stop moving. Walking through the park, he passes the frantic rush of the world with a calm nod. He watches children play and a single leaf spiral to the grass. In this stillness, he realizes he is not a traveler on a path. He is the path itself. He is not waiting for a reward or an ending. He is simply, finally, here. He takes a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill his lungs. As he lets it out slowly, he whispers to the wind. The journey was never about reaching somewhere. It was about realizing you were already enough. He closes his eyes, complete. The morning mist clings to the valley floor. You stand at the edge of the cliff. Years ago, this silence would have terrified you. You would have paced, checked your watch, but today, you stand still. The questions have dissolved into the fog. You do not ask if you are on the right path, because your feet are already moving. You reach into your pack, pull out a single compass, and place it back, unused. You know the way. The identity you once wore like heavy armor has finally fallen away. You watch a hawk circle above, waiting for the wind to shift. You wait with it. Timing is not a force to be conquered, but a rhythm to be joined. When the path narrows into a steep climb, you do not hesitate. You place one hand on the rock, find a grip, and pull. The world stretches out below. You do not need to leave a monument. You are not becoming someone new. The room is silent. You sit in a wooden chair, watching dust motes dance in a single beam of light. Years ago, this silence felt like a cage. Today, you simply watch. The discipline you forged is no longer a tool. It is the floor beneath your feet. Outside, the world moves in a frantic blur. People chase shadows, convinced the next milestone will make them whole. You feel no urge to join. When a stranger bumps into you, spilling coffee, your pulse remains still. The incident is merely a cloud passing through the vast sky of your mind. You reach the park bench where you once sat broken. You realize now that you were never building a new self. You were chipping away the stone to reveal the statue hidden inside. Every struggle was a chisel. Every failure was a strike of the hammer. There is no trophy to claim, only the act of living. The sun begins to set, and the shadows lengthen. You remain an unshakable center in a shifting landscape. You have arrived at the realization that the journey was always just this, the simple, honest act of being present. Nothing has changed in the world, yet everything has shifted. The storm outside rages with fury, but inside, Elias sits motionless. He does not check his watch or pace the floor. Now, he simply breathes. He drinks his tea, his movements fluid and free of frantic energy. On the desk, his phone lights up with a panicked message. Elias glances at it, then turns it face down. He steps out into the downpour. He does not run for shelter. A neighbor rushes past, face twisted in panic, shouting about the flood. Elias simply nods a small, calm gesture. He has no identity to defend. He is not becoming anything. He simply is. He finds a park bench and sits amidst the blur of noise. He realizes the years of searching were just layers of dust to be brushed away. He was not the seeker. He was the peace he had been looking for. The room was heavy with silence. Elias sat in his worn leather chair. The only sound, the rhythmic ticking of a clock. He stared at his calloused hands. No trophies lined his shelves, only a stack of journals filled with ink-stained pages. He remembered the winter the factory closed, walking through the rain for work. He recalled the nights at the kitchen table, counting coins for his daughter's books. He had felt the cold bite of failure, yet he never missed a morning shift. He stood up, joints aching, and looked at the flickering city lights. He realized then that the struggle was not a wall, it was the foundation. He had spent his life building a bridge out of grit and consistency. He didn't need the world to know his name. He kept climbing. The fire within was no longer a frantic blaze, but a steady, warm glow. He wrote 3 words: stay the course.